Welcome to the 700 Club, a raging pandemic, high unemployment, explosive social unrest. America is fighting all three dangers. But none of these is the greatest threat to our economic future. So what is it? It's a superpower bully that wants to rule the world. Dale Hurd has that.
FBI Director Wray said the Chinese theft of American intellectual property is so vast, it's one of the greatest transfers of wealth in world history. Wray described an all-out assault on almost every sector of the American economy.
We've now reached the point where the FBI is opening a new China-related counterintelligence case about every 10 hours. China is engaged in a whole-of-state effort to become the world's only superpower by any means necessary.
Wray said half of all counterintelligence investigations now involve China, and China has stolen the personal data of most American adults. This as China seems to be trying to dominate an economically weak post-COVID-19 world through increasingly aggressive behavior. 20 Indian soldiers were killed last month in a surprise cross-border attack by the Chinese army. China is harassing its neighbors in the South China Sea, brazenly crushing democracy in Hong Kong and again threatening war with the United States. Asia has what some are calling a new bully, and China's expansionist ambitions are bringing it into conflict with many of its neighbors. China has ongoing border disputes with at least 8 nations, largely because it has claimed most of the international waters in the South China Sea for itself. It's even begun to demand land from Russia's Far East.
No country on China's periphery right now is safe from Chinese aggression. All those countries want a close relationship with the United States. We ought to have one.
China has now taken off the mask. It is now open about its ambitions, and the world is rising up against it.
China expert Stephen Mosier, author of Bully of Asia, says China has managed to anger or frighten most of its neighbors.
China has accomplished in 6 months what it would have taken America 10 years to accomplish. That is to forge an anti-Chinese alliance out of the different nations of the Asia-Pacific Rim. The Philippines is backing away from China. Taiwan is beefing up its military even more because they see that after what's happened to Hong Kong, they're next.
Regardless of its threats, Mosier says China does not want a shooting war with the United States.
What it wants to do is it wants to use this gray area between war and peace to continue its cyber attacks, to continue its espionage in the United States and other countries. But it certainly would use force in the future if it thought it had achieved a position of dominance.
But China's only real military ally is North Korea, and China's increasingly bad behavior on the world stage is isolating it even more. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
Thanks, Dale. China used to be called the Middle Kingdom. They did not want to be aggressive in any other direction. They had enough land, and that was it. Now there's a totally different posture there. I thought at one time China was going to become the largest Christian nation on the face of the earth. But Xi has ruthlessly suppressed Christianity in China, not to mention what he's doing to re-educate the Uyghurs, the Muslim population in that part of China. It's just horrible what's happening, and they've stolen us blind. Any company that wants to do business with China must give over their intellectual property to China, and they're doing everything they can. Now we've got 2 carriers into the South China Sea as a token against them, but it's only the beginning. President Trump is going to be faced with a major challenge after the election, and China is going to be number 1. Well, in other news, America is hitting new highs in coronavirus cases, and hospitals in some states are struggling to keep up. Jessup has more from Washington.
Pat, the nation set another new record of coronavirus cases Tuesday, 58,000 in a single day, and expected today to hit 3 million cases since the outbreak began. Still, the death rate remains low, at least for now, but Dr. Anthony Fauci warns we can't rest easy.
It's a false narrative to take comfort in a lower rate of death.
Many states have been rolling back their reopenings. Texas passing 10,000 cases on Tuesday. In some places, hospitals and healthcare systems, Pat, are being pushed to the limit.
Well, we have urged, if you really love other people, if you love your neighbor, if you love your family, we've got to protect ourselves. And apparently these aerosols we talked about in our last broadcast having to do with these COVID viruses are in the air for much longer than was thought. These masks, as a matter of fact, they're only partially safe, but they're better than nothing. And we all wear them, and the president needs to set the example. We need to wear the mask, and we need to do social distancing. But whatever it is, this spike in these cases is not very optimistic. Well, John?
Well, Pat, despite the surge in new cases, the White House is pushing schools to reopen in the fall. At a roundtable with health and education officials, President Trump put the pressure on state and local officials to get students back in the classroom. Caitlin Burke has the story.
The risks of keeping students home outweigh the risks tied to the coronavirus. That from health and education experts gathered at the White House Tuesday to discuss safely reopening schools in the fall.
When children are out of school, they are missing more than just time in the classroom. They're missing the laughter of their friends, learning from their teachers, and the joy of recess and play. For children with disabilities, without access to technology, or whose homes are not a safe place, the situation can be even worse.
President Trump says he'll put pressure on governors and other officials as a part of an all-out effort by the White House to reopen the nation's schools. And he accused anyone who opposes the decision of doing so for political reasons.
And we hope that most schools are going to be open. We don't want people to make political statements or do it for political reasons.
School districts are running out of time to make decisions about what the fall will look like, finding there isn't a one-size-fits-all solution because the virus looks different in each community. Still, since young people aren't severely affected by the virus, the CDC, the American Academy of Pediatrics, and many of America's top health officials agree with the president's push to get students back in the classroom.
There will be some counties where the infection is so low you won't have to worry. In the other situation, you might have counties or parts of the state in which there is enough viral activity that you might want to modify scheduling. Things like masks at all time, things like alternating morning, afternoon, decreasing the size and the space between desks.
Really, the bottom line is that we have to learn how to live with this virus and manage it so it doesn't manage us. And going back to school is critically important, as we know, for many, many reasons.
Florida's governor has already ordered all public schools to reopen in the fall. Harvard University, on the opposite end of the spectrum, announcing this week that its fall term will be entirely online. Caitlin Burke, CBN News.
Thank you, Caitlin. California's governor has banned churchgoers from singing in worship services. New guidance from the state's Department of Public Health says indicates the positive effects of social distancing, adding, quote, places of worship must therefore discontinue indoor singing. A number of churches are not complying. Pastor Sam Rodriguez oversees 40,000 churches as head of the National Hispanic Christian Leadership Conference. He told CBN News his Sacramento church defied the order this past Sunday.
We have masks for every single person who comes in. We're sanitizing every hand. We're asking you if you're sick not to come in at all. We're dotting every I, crossing every T, calling every family. We're doing all of that. We're going beyond the call of duty. I don't want anyone to get sick with COVID, God forbid. But I'm not going to stop praising. I'm not going to stop worshiping.
And Pat, Liberty Counsel attorney Matt Staver says the governor's restriction is unconstitutional.
Well, I think it probably is. I mean, to say you can assemble, but you can't sing, I mean, that's a little bit over the top. You expel more air when you sing, but so do you when you sneeze. So the governor's going to stop sneezing. I mean, it's just ridiculous. But yes, this is unconstitutional. But you know, you never know what's going to happen out of California. So God bless each one in California.